The entire history of China explained in 15 minutes. China is the oldest continuous civilization on Earth. While empires rose and fell across the Mediterranean, while Rome burned and Rome rebuilt, while Europe stumbled through its so-called Dark Ages, China kept going. Dynasties replaced dynasties, but the civilization endured. 5,000 years of history. Let us begin. The story begins in the Yellow River Valley, around 5000 BCE. Neolithic Chinese communities developed agriculture, domesticated animals, and created sophisticated pottery. The Yanshao and Longshan cultures produced ceramics so beautiful they still take your breath away in museums today. These were the seeds of Chinese civilization. Around 2070 BCE, according to tradition, the Xia dynasty emerged as China's first dynasty. For a long time, historians debated whether the Xia were real or mythological. Archaeological discoveries at Erlitou have since revealed a complex Bronze Age society that matches the traditional Xia timeline. Whether or not it was called the Xia, something real was there. Then came the Shang dynasty, around 1600 BCE. The Shang were warriors and ritualists. They cast enormous bronze vessels of extraordinary craftsmanship. They practiced human sacrifice on a massive scale. And they left behind oracle bones, turtle shells and ox scapulae inscribed with questions to the ancestors. These inscriptions are the earliest known form of Chinese writing. With writing comes history. The Shang gave China its written tradition. In 1046 BCE, the Zhou dynasty overthrew the Shang. The Zhou introduced a concept that would shape Chinese political thought for 3,000 years, the mandate of heaven. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Heaven grants the right to rule to a just dynasty. When a dynasty becomes corrupt or incompetent, heaven withdraws its mandate, and rebellion becomes justified. This idea Chinese emperors could never simply claim divine right. They had to earn it through good governance. The Zhou era split into two periods. The Western Zhou was relatively stable. The Eastern Zhou, beginning around 770 BCE, was anything but. It fractured into the Spring and Autumn period and then the Warring States period, when 7 major kingdoms fought brutal wars for supremacy. Hundreds of thousands died. Entire armies were massacred. In one battle alone, the state of Qin reportedly buried 400,000 surrendered soldiers alive. But this era of chaos produced something extraordinary. With so many competing states, rulers competed for the best thinkers. This was the golden age of Chinese philosophy. Confucius taught that society depended on virtue, ritual, and filial piety. Laozi founded Taoism, teaching harmony with the natural way. Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War, still read by military strategists and business executives today. Mozi preached universal love. Han Feizi developed legalism, the ruthless philosophy that would ultimately win. This was China's 100 schools of thought, and its influence rivals anything produced in ancient Greece. In 221 BCE, the state of Qin won. King Zheng of Qin conquered the last rival kingdom and declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. He standardized weights, measures, currency, and writing across all of China. He built roads and canals. He connected existing defensive walls into what would become the Great Wall. He buried himself in a tomb guarded by an army of 8,000 terracotta warriors, each with a unique face. But Qin Shi Huang was also a tyrant. He burned books. He buried scholars alive. He worked his people to death building his wall and his tomb. The Qin dynasty collapsed just 4 years after his death, brought down by peasant rebellions. From those rebellions emerged the Han dynasty, founded by Liu Bang, a former peasant, in 202 BCE. The Han would rule for over 400 years and give China its ethnic identity. To this day, the majority ethnic group in China calls itself Han Chinese. The Han dynasty was one of the greatest periods in Chinese history. Emperor Wu expanded Chinese territory deep into Central Asia, opening the Silk Road, the trade network that connected China to Persia, India, and eventually Rome. Chinese silk became the most coveted luxury in the Roman Empire. The Han developed paper, the compass, and advanced metallurgy. The historian Sima Qian wrote the records of the Grand Historian, establishing the model for all subsequent Chinese historical writing. The Han fell in 220 CE, and China fractured into the three kingdoms Wei, Shu, and Wu. This period inspired one of China's greatest novels, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, full of legendary heroes, brilliant strategists, and epic battles. It remains one of the most beloved stories in East Asian culture. After centuries of division, the Sui dynasty briefly reunified China in 589 CE. The Sui built the Grand Canal, an engineering marvel stretching over 1,100 miles, connecting the Yangtze and Yellow River systems. But like the Qin before them, the Sui overworked their people and collapsed quickly. The Tang dynasty, beginning in 618 CE, is often considered the golden age of Chinese civilization. The Tang capital Chang'an, modern Xi'an, was the largest city in the world, with over 1 million residents. It was a cosmopolitan metropolis where Persians, Arabs, Turks, Japanese, and Koreans mingled in the streets. Poetry flourished. Li Bai and Du Fu are considered China's greatest poets. Buddhism reached its peak influence. The Tang legal code became the model for law across East Asia. But the Tang declined after the devastating Lushan rebellion in the mid-700s, which killed an estimated 36 million people, one of the deadliest conflicts in human history before World War II. The dynasty limped on for another century before finally collapsing. After another period of fragmentation, the Song dynasty reunified most of China in 960 CE. The Song era was an economic and technological revolution. China developed gunpowder weapons, the magnetic compass for navigation, movable type printing, and paper money. The economy was so advanced that some historians call it an early form of capitalism. The population doubled. Cities grew larger and more prosperous than anywhere in Europe. But the Song had a fatal weakness: military vulnerability. They lost northern China to the Jurchen Jin dynasty and were eventually conquered entirely by the Mongols under Kublai Khan in 1279. The Yuan dynasty, founded by Kublai Khan, made China part of the Mongol Empire. Marco Polo supposedly visited during this period. The Mongols were effective administrators but never fully trusted by their Chinese subjects. After less than a century, rebellions drove them out. The Ming dynasty, founded by the peasant-turned-emperor Zhu Yuanzhang in 1368, was one of China's most celebrated dynasties. The Ming built the Forbidden City in Beijing, a palace complex of nearly 1,000 rooms that still stands today. They launched the treasure fleets of Admiral Zhang Yi, massive ships that sailed as far as East Africa decades before Columbus crossed the Atlantic. Some of Zhang Yi's ships were over 400 feet long, 10 times the size of Columbus's Santa Maria. But the Ming eventually turned inward. They halted the treasure voyages. They focused on defending against northern invaders. And in 1644, a combination of peasant rebellion and Manchu invasion brought them down. The Qing dynasty, founded by the Manchus, would be China's last imperial dynasty. At its height under emperors Kangxi, Yongzheng, and Qianlong in the 17th and 18th centuries, the Qing Empire was one of the largest and most prosperous in the world. The population tripled to over 400 million. But the 19th century brought catastrophe. The Opium Wars with Britain forced China to open its ports and cede Hong Kong. The Taiping Rebellion killed an estimated 20 to 30 million people. The Boxer Rebellion brought foreign armies to Beijing. China was carved into spheres of influence by European powers, Japan, and Russia. Chinese called it the century of humiliation. In 1912, the Qing dynasty fell. The Republic of China was declared under Sun Yat-sen. But the republic quickly fragmented into warlord territories. Then came the Japanese invasion in the 1930s, the Second Sino-Japanese War, and World War II, which killed an estimated 20 million Chinese. After the war, civil war between Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists and Mao Zedong's communists ended with Mao's victory in 1949. The People's Republic of China was born. Chiang fled to Taiwan. Mao's rule brought both transformation and tragedy. The Great Leap Forward, an attempt at rapid industrialization, caused a famine that killed an estimated 30 to 45 million people, the deadliest man-made disaster in human history. The Cultural Revolution destroyed countless cultural treasures and persecuted millions. After Mao's death in 1976, Deng Xiaoping launched economic reforms that transformed China into the world's second-largest economy. Hundreds of millions were lifted out of poverty. Cities like Shanghai and Shenzhen became global powerhouses. Today, China stands as a superpower with the world's largest population, a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, and an economy that touches every corner of the globe. From the Yellow River Valley to the South China Sea, from Qin Shi Huang to Xi Jinping, China's story is far from over. 5,000 years of continuous civilization. The longest story on Earth. And it is still being written. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Hermes History for more deep dives into the past.